Let's imagine that you're in England and you want to do a study of some people who've got mercury amalgam fillings and some people who haven't got mercury amalgam fillings. So what you need to do is find, say, 50 people in each category. 50 with mercury amalgam fillings, 50 without. So you want to look for people with mercury amalgam fillings, and what you do is you look around a place like where we are now. I'm near Manchester. That's a big city, got a lot of people living there. Let's go to Manchester, knock on a few doors and try and find people with mercury amalgam fillings. And what you'd find is, if you went to, say, central Manchester, an area like Miles Platting, and you knocked on the doors and you asked people, have you got mercury amalgam fillings? You'd find a lot of them would say yes. Brilliant. We need 50 people. So we go down the street from door to door. And it's interesting because what we find is, it's not as though we knock on a door and here's somebody with mercury amalgam fillings, and the next door they haven't got them, next door they have not. What we find is that in Miles Platting, an inner city area, most of the people on that street have got nothing but mercury amalgam fillings. So we've got 50 people who've got mercury amalgam fillings, but now we need to find 50 people who haven't got mercury amalgam fillings. So where are we going to look for them? It's no good looking in Miles Platting. We'll have to go further afield. So we need to go further afield. We're in central Manchester and we found people with mercury amalgam fillings. Maybe we need to go to, say, South Manchester, the leafy suburbs. People are a bit more well off there. People are in employment. They're not so deprived as they are in the inner city. So let's go to South Manchester and knock on a few doors there. And sure enough, we find people who haven't got mercury amalgam fillings. They've got white fillings in their teeth. They've got resin. They've got ceramics. They've got all the alternatives. And we knock on a few doors and we find that in that street, most of the people in that street have not got mercury amalgam fillings. Some of them have a couple, and they've also got some white fillings as well. So we won't bother with them. We'll skip over them and we'll look for people who've only got mercury amalgam fillings. And pretty soon we find 50 people. Now here's the problem. We've got 50 people with no mercury amalgam fillings for our study, and we've got 50 people with mercury amalgam fillings, but they're from different areas. These people are from South Manchester. These people are from central Manchester. And what we find is that there's a difference between these two places. Out here in the leafy suburbs is the professional classes, big houses, homeowners, people in employment. Here in the inner city, we find people with a lot of unemployment and also bad health, and they're living in poor housing and they haven't got much money. How's that? How is it that these people don't have mercury fillings and these people do? And the answer, of course, is about money. Now I know this from personal experience because last year the dentists around our way closed down, but a big new health centre opened just over there on the main road, and I went in to try and register with the dentist. They were quite happy to take me. I said I was a bit nervous about mercury fillings. Would it be alright if I had white fillings instead? They said they could do that, but white fillings were what they called cosmetic. Mercury fillings on the National Health Service in Britain are free. They're standard and they are offered to everybody for free. You don't have to pay. It comes out of taxes. However, if you want white fillings, you have to pay for them. If you want ceramics, if you want resin, if you want anything that isn't mercury amalgam, then you have to pay. And how much is one of these white fillings, you wonder? £80, I was told. £80. People that we met over here in Miles Platting, the ones that had mercury fillings, remember that? Some of them are on benefits. Some of them are earning from those benefits maybe £150 a week. So they'd be able to pay in 1 week for 2 non-amalgam fillings. Is that likely? What we found, remember, is we knocked on the doors in Miles Platting and everybody had mercury amalgam fillings. When we went here to the leafy suburbs of Didsbury, we found that most people had white fillings. But these are the leafy suburbs. These are where people are in work, perhaps the professional classes, perhaps buying their own houses. Not over here where they're renting houses, where they're living on benefits, where unemployment is high, where housing conditions are very constrained. No, they're over here and they have non-mercury fillings. Perhaps that's because they can afford them. If we were looking for teenagers and people in their 20s, then we have to think about people who very recently had their dental care organised by their parents. Over here, the parents take them to the dentist and they get mercury amalgam fillings. Over here, the parents take them to the dentist and pay for non-mercury treatment. That's because they can afford to. But what effect is that going to have on our study? It's going to have a very bad effect on our study, because what we've got here is 50 people, forget teeth for a minute, 50 people who live in the leafy suburbs of South Manchester. And over here, we've got 50 people who live in the inner city area of South Manchester. And what every study has told us over the last few years is people who live in the leafy suburbs look after their health. They eat better, they exercise more, they join gyms, they are aware of health problems. If they're feeling ill, they go to the dentist. The people who live in the inner city, they're stressed. They're living on low incomes. They can't afford to think about health food. They try and avoid the doctors. There is a higher level of ill health and so on. So if we take these two groups, forget about the teeth for a minute, let's just think about 50 people here and 50 people there. Then what should happen is any comparison between the two groups, whether it's about autism, asthma, whether it's about digestive problems, whether it's about rheumatism, arthritis, any form of illness, what we should find, because studies have shown this, is that the group of people who live in the leafy suburbs are healthier than the group of people who live in the inner city. But here's the strange thing. According to Ben Goldacre, when we put people who've got mercury amalgam fillings up against people who haven't got mercury amalgam fillings, and we test any aspect of health, they come out the same. The same? They come out the same. These people with their mercury amalgam fillings are just as healthy as these people without mercury amalgam fillings. And it doesn't matter whether you're looking at asthma or autism or rheumatism or infectious diseases, these two groups of people come out the same. There is no statistically significant difference between these two groups. That's what he says. But these people live in the rich suburbs, they're the professional class. It doesn't matter. These people have no mercury amalgam fillings, these people have mercury amalgam fillings, and they are the same. Every study shows that mercury amalgam fillings makes no difference to health. You are equally healthy. It doesn't matter. So, there's only one possible conclusion, and that is that having mercury amalgam fillings fitted, even though you live in a deprived area, somehow makes you healthier. It makes you equally healthy to the people who live in the leafy suburbs. Doesn't it? Now you might say, no Mike, you're missing the point completely. When we recruit those people who've got the mercury amalgam fillings, we go all over Manchester. We go to not just Miles Platting, we go to Ancoats in East Manchester. We go to Hume and Mosside, and really? You go to Mosside? Mosside, one of the most deprived wards, not just in Manchester, but in the whole of the northwest of England. There's a lot of West Indian people, of West Indian origin, living in Mosside, and the fashion there is for them to have gold in their teeth. So they've got gold, that's going to mix up the study. We can't really fit them into the mercury amalgam group, even though they might have mercury amalgam as well, because they've got gold, and they don't really fit into the non-mercury amalgam group. So we can't include them, can we? And what about Didsbury? We went to Didsbury, and that is one of the poshest areas. That is where professional people live. Maybe we could go to, say, Chorlton. That's quite affluent, an up-and-coming area. Let's see if maybe in that area half the people have got mercury amalgam fillings and half of them haven't. Actually, no, that's not the case. If you talk to dentists in Chorlton, what you find is that private treatment is very popular. People in that area are very aware of their health. They're very keen to make sure that they stay healthy. So that really doesn't work. If you're telling me that the studies between mercury amalgam filling and non-mercury amalgam filling have been adjusted for social standing and area of origin, whether it's an inner city deprived area or whether it's a leafy suburb, I find that a bit hard to believe. And not just that, it isn't actually mentioned in the study. If you look at the studies that have been done in England, and maybe this is just an English problem, maybe it doesn't apply in France and Germany and the United States of America, but the fact is that there's a correlation between who's got mercury amalgam fillings in England and where they live. The people with the fillings live in deprived areas. The people without the fillings live in the more affluent areas. And therefore what should happen, because every study shows it, is the people in the more affluent areas should be more healthy than these people who live in the less affluent areas. And if Ben Goldacre is seriously telling us that the two groups, when we compare mercury amalgam fillings with non-mercury amalgam fillings, they're the same, then there is only one conclusion. Fitting mercury amalgam fillings and living in that area makes you healthier. Obviously, that must be the answer, mustn't it?